The kill team woke on Enoch beneath the towering shadow of Theocropolis Vehementer. There was no gentle summons, no tolling bell, no ceremonial procession prepared in advance by robed functionaries and candle-bearers. The order came like a blade drawn in the dark, immediate return to the vow of absolution. Within moments, Kill Team Crimson Carapace was armed, and moving through the cathedral city's immense stone arteries. Theocropolis Vehementer loomed around them in vaults of red marble, black iron, and prayer-scarred adamantium. Absolvers, honor guard, awaited them in silence. Storm shields locked at their sides, power spears grounded against the floor in perfect symmetry. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their presence alone proclaimed the gravity of the summons. The Thunderhawk waited beyond the shrine approaches, engines already shrieking with restrained fury. Nersus Ged took the pilot's throne. He flew as if the void itself had offended him. The Thunderhawk tore from Enoch's atmosphere with brutal precision, its armor rattling beneath the strain, its machine spirit howling through the ascent. Warning runes flashed and died beneath Nersus's hands. He coaxed, threatened, and mastered the craft in equal measure, cutting through traffic lanes and orbital debris with impossible economy. By the time the vow of absolution filled the forward augurs, the Thunderhawk had crossed the distance in record time. No triumph greeted them aboard the battle barge, only urgency. They were rushed through the ancient corridors of the vow, past serfs who had been ordered to their knees, past sealed bulkheads and sensor-bearing servitors, past warning lumen strips flickering in amber and red. The ship felt wrong, too tense, too watchful, as if the vessel itself had drawn breath and dared not exhale. They were brought to Arion dusk. The librarian was in a trance, not meditation, not controlled communion, something deeper, something wrong. Warp lightning lashed from him in spasms of violet-blue fury, striking pillars, cracking stone, scarring brass icons, and burning black veins across the chamber walls. Servo skulls spun dead from the air. Prayer seals ignited. The air tasted of copper, ozone, and old fear. Arion hovered at the center of the devastation, locked in some terrible vision, his armor shuddering as if the warp had reached through him and seized his bones. The kill team heard him speak. Broken words, fragments torn from prophecy.
The beginning of the end.
A burst of lightning split a stone relief of Sanguinius.
In Daedalon's labyrinth.
The chamber lights dimmed.
Necron obelisk.
The air twisted.
The dark prophecy.
Then Icarus Dawn stepped forward. The chaplain in black Terminator plate did not roar. He did not command. He prayed. His words were measured, cold, and absolute. A litany of restraint. A chain of faith hammered link by link around a soul in peril. The Crozius Arcanum glowed in his grip, not with witchlight, but with a terrible certainty of belief. The prayer filled the chamber, and where it passed, the lightning recoiled. Arion screamed once. Then the storm broke. The librarian collapsed into a deep and merciful slumber. Silence followed, not peace, only the absence of immediate catastrophe. The kill team brought what they had heard to Chaplain Heractus. There was no debate worthy of the name. Daedalon had been named. The labyrinth had been named. A Necron obelisk had been named. And in the wake of Ostia, after the violet cube, after Ephilates, after the shifting designs of Macintosh and the faithful Writ. No brother of Crimson Carapace could pretend such signs were coincidence. They would go to Daedalon, moon of Gilead Primus, a cemetery world in all but formal designation, a dead thing orbiting a dying capital, swollen with the remains of millions. Everyday funeral barges descended through its foul atmosphere, unloading the corpses of soldiers, laborers, penitents, hive workers, martyrs, criminals, saints, and the forgotten nameless dead of the Gilead system. The worthy were buried with honor. The rest served again. Bone became reliquary. Fat became candle. Flesh became corpse starch. Augmetics were stripped, sorted, blessed, and reassigned. Beneath the moon's surface lay the labyrinth, a packed ossuary of tunnels, chapels, rendering vaults, bone galleries, and reclamation shrines, where the ecclesiarchy disassembled the dead with hymns on their lips and ledgers in their hands. Recently, the administratum had begun to press deeper into Daedalon's affairs. Production reports did not match expected yield. Discrepancies had become accusations. Accusations had become tension. The ecclesiarchy dismissed the missing output as clerical error. The administratum muttered darker words: theft, negligence, concealment. Into this machinery of death came the thunderhawk of the Absolvers. When Castor Domitius voxed for landing permission, the clerk who answered did not understand what approached. To him, it was simply another inbound craft amid hundreds, another delivery, another cargo of honored rot and nameless meat for the moon's endless labor. Then the Thunderhawk landed. Then Castor disembarked. The starport worker who saw him first nearly fainted. White armor, red trim, storm shield, relic blade. The bearing of a warrior saint stepped out of a cathedral window and given wrathful life. The man stammered, choked, and finally managed to vox one of the control towers in a voice that had abandoned all discipline. Within minutes, the killed team was surrounded. Priests, deacons, mortuary officials, censer bearers, ledger clerks, relic custodians, men and women in funeral vestments half fastened in haste, their finery still being buttoned and buckled as they approached. They came smiling, bowing, sweating, each one desperate to stand nearest the angels of death, each one eager to be remembered as the first loyal servant to welcome such honored guests. Castor had no patience for them. Their pomp broke against him like rain against armor. He seized upon a senior staff member and demanded truth, not ceremony. Something irregular was happening on Daedalon. He wanted numbers. He wanted facts. He wanted no hymns unless they were being sung over the guilty. The truth came reluctantly. 9% unexplained losses. On another world, such a figure might have been dismissed as bureaucratic weakness. On Daedalon, where every corpse, bone, tooth, scrap of tallow, and augmetic screw had a place in the imperial machine, 9% was not loss. It was a wound. Nurses moved to the cogitator banks, his servo skull drifting beside him like a patient carry-on bird. He examined data flow, production tallies, landing records, and vox traffic. Patterns emerged, or rather, absences did. Vox transmissions from the western entrance of the labyrinth were strangely limited. too limited. A silence imposed where noise should have been constant. That was enough. The kill team moved for the western entrance. The senior staff member attempted to send a clerk to notify the authorities. Sarpenthis stopped him. The clerk would accompany them. No one else would be informed. The man went pale. He went anyway. At the entrance to the labyrinth, the smell met them like a physical thing. Ash, feces, rendered fat, old incense, wet stone, putrefaction blessed and processed until it had become part of the architecture. The clerk began retching almost immediately. The Astartes descended. The deeper they went, the worse it became. The air thickened. It clung to armor seals and cloth alike. The clerk's retching turned to vomiting, then to helpless spasms. Lucas Danit caught him by the back of his ecclesiarchy tunic and held him at arm's length, carefully angling the man's head away from the kill team so the spray did not foul their armor. Even in the labyrinth there were standards. Nurses saw the light first, a flicker of blue, weak and unnatural, pulsing from a northeastern passage. They followed it and found a ritual circle. Runes marked the floor. The air was sharp with ozone. Lucas detected it immediately over and beneath the stink of death. The clerk began coughing blood between bouts of vomiting. Castor sent him back to the surface before he collapsed entirely. Icarus examined the runes. They were not heretical. That made them worse. Heretical markings could be named, condemned, and purged. These were stranger, not holy, not damned, not easily placed within the simple categories by which men survived the impossible. Then, 6 meters to their right, they saw the old man. A ministorum preacher, pale, blind, ancient, rocking back and forth in the gloom, chanting a prayer in a voice like dry parchment dragged across bone. The killed team had not detected him, not Nursus, not Lukes, not the servo skull. He had simply been there. As the brothers discussed tactics, the preacher turned his blind face towards them.
Careful, pilgrims. Daedalon's labyrinth keeps what it's owed. You're hunting a machine. Of course you are. Everyone thinks they're the first to smell the incense and ozone. It's close. Where the tunnel forks into 3 mouths. Look for the cog door with a tally mark scratched over the lock. Past it, chanting, then cold. Don't waste time on runes. Don't argue with the maker. Go under the dais. There's a black stone rib, the master power inductor, bolted down with 3 locking studs. Pull it out, and the machine loses its guidance. Go on then, hurry. The labyrinth is listening.
The words hung in the air. When the kill team turned back to question him, the preacher lay collapsed on the floor. Lucas found no pulse. That alone would not have been strange. What was strange was the body. The preacher had been dead for weeks. They followed his instructions. North, through the passages, past the fork of 3 mouths, to the cog door marked with a tally scratched over the lock. Beyond it came chanting, faint and cold. Beneath a chapel dais, they found the stairway, black, narrow, descending into a chill that did not belong beneath a moon of corpse furnaces and rendering vaults. At the bottom, Lucchese heard it, chanting, and something else, the delicate insectile whisper of mechadendrites. They opened the door with care. War answered. A warpsmith waited within, attended by 2 venom crawlers, their demon engines twitching on bladed limbs, furnace maws glowing, metal bodies moving with predatory hate. The chamber erupted in muzzle flare, flame, and shrieking machine spirit agony. Castor met the first venom crawler head-on and destroyed it, his relic blade cutting through demon-forged armor, while his storm shield drank the impact of its fury. Sarpenthus hurled himself into the warpsmith with the violence of a falling statue, battering the heretic monster and driving him back in a storm of sparks and broken cabling. The warpsmith tried to answer with iron, blasphemy, and machine hate. Lucchese ended him with plasma. The apothecary's pistol roared, and the warpsmith came apart in incandescent ruin. The second venom crawler fought on, screaming through vox grills and demon lungs, until Icarus closed with it. His Crozius Arcanum struck once, twice, then a final time with the certainty of judgment. The demon engine collapsed into twitching wreckage. The kill team took out the 3 locking studs and destroyed them and deactivated the master power inductor. The Necron obelisk went dark. But the labyrinth was not done with them. Eastward, the kill team entered a wider opening. There, chaos waited in strength. 9 traitor Astartes, an aspiring champion. 6 havocs, a havoc champion. Then laughter sounded from the north. Familiar, cruel, amused. Black fog gathered like a bruise in the air. Macintos. Icarus remembered the prayer he had used aboard the ducal circlet, the prayer that had once broken the sorcerer's hold and stopped his evil magic. Again he raised his voice. Again faith became a weapon. Again the Emperor's name was spoken into a place that hated it. Macintos screamed in rage. The ambush lost its rhythm. Nersus threw a crack grenade into the Chaos Space Marines. The blast tore through them, staggering the entire formation. Lucchese followed with another, finishing what the Eliminator had begun. Sarpenthus struck like a meteor, his jump pack flaring as he slammed into the Havocs with Hammer of Wrath, killing 2 and the Havoc champion in a single brutal assault. Icaros and Nersus dealt with the survivors. There was no mercy in it, only conclusion. Then came movement from the east. The kill team readied. Warp talons burst around the corner, claws raised, reality bleeding around them. Castor prayed to the Emperor and hurled 3 crack grenades into their midst. The explosions turned the charge into wreckage. Those that survived found themselves facing the rest of Crimson Carapace and did not survive long enough to regret it. Nersus sent his servo skull ahead. It found tracks leading south. The kill team followed them to a door. Sarpenthus kicked it in. The room beyond became another killing ground. Castor charged first, as he always did when the line needed to be drawn in blood. A Chaos spawn lurched towards him alongside 2 possessed Chaos Space Marines. The spawn died beneath his assault, and one of the possessed reeled from his blade. Nersus put a round through the injured possessed's head. Then Macintos laughed again. This time he was already in the room, invisible. His sorcery struck Castor with soul shrivel and smite, tearing through flesh, armor, and spirit. Castor staggered, but did not fall. More possessed came from the southern passage. 2 hurled themselves at Icarus, but their claws broke against Terminator plate and storm shield. 1 charged Castor and failed to bring him down. A master of possession emerged behind them, staff raised, intent on crushing Castor beneath sorcerous force. He struck and failed. The staff of possession jammed into a crack in the wall with a humiliating shriek of trapped metal. Icarus gravely injured one, possessed, carving judgment into corrupted flesh. Then another chaos spawn came around the corner and crashed into Castor. Its grasping tentacles wrapped around him. Razor claws found gaps and weaknesses. Poison entered even his transhuman body, defying the organs crafted to defeat lesser toxins. Lucas moved forward and fired into the spawn, but the beast did not die. Then Sarpenthus descended. Jump pack screaming, thunder hammer raised, he struck the spawn with enough force to pulp bone, armor, and mutation into the floor. The thing burst beneath the blow. Castor, wounded and poisoned, could not bring his blade to bear. So he brought light. Wrathful light flared from him, blinding one possessed and the master of possession. Nersus used the opening, sighted cleanly, and killed the possessed, attacking Castor with a single sniper round to the head. The remaining possessed threw itself against Icarus and failed. The chaplain answered with his Crozios and killed it, clearing a path for Lucais. But Masintos struck Castor again. The sorcerous assault nearly killed him. Lucais ran through the chaos of the chamber and reached his brother. The apothecary worked fast, precise, and cold, sealing wounds, driving antidotes into Castor's system, fighting poison and warp trauma with skill, doctrine, and refusal. Sarpenthus, meanwhile, had an idea. Not elegant, not subtle, not endorsed by any tactical manual, that still possessed a sane author. He spun. Thunderhammer extended. Jump pack correcting his balance, he turned himself into a brutal arc of ceramite and force, sweeping the space from which Macintos's attacks had come. The blow was imperfect, but it hit something. Macintos appeared 6 meters away, his disc bent and damaged beneath him. He reached for a cube. Then the blind Ministorum preacher appeared beside him, laughing. The old flesh peeled away from the truth beneath. Ara vitu urhal. The demon grinned at Macintos and said,
Now we see who is really the slave.
Then it cast its own working and vanished. Warp power began to drain from the cube into Macintos. The sorcerer screamed. His body changed, armor split, flesh stretched, bones elongated into impossible structures. Feathers, horn, talon, and flame erupted from him as reality buckled. The chamber filled with color no mortal eye was meant to endure. Macintos rose, no longer merely sorcerer, no longer merely slave of the writ, but something vast and terrible. A greater demon of Tzeentch. The battle that followed was monstrous. The demon struck with talon, spell, wing, and hate. It battered the killed team with impossible strength and twisted sorcery. The brothers answered with blade, hammer, bolter, plasma, Crozius, and faith. The chamber became a storm of shattered stone, burning air, and demon blood that did not obey gravity. Sarpenthus saw the opening. His jump pack ignited. He launched himself at the demon and brought his thunder hammer down into one of its legs with all the force his armor, gene-wrought body, and fury could deliver. The limb broke. Castor moved in. Mors Noctis fell. The demon's leg came off beneath the strike. The creature shrieked, knocked Castor back, and rose into the air, wings beating against the smoke. It cast smite at Nersus. Its rage now turned upon the silent hunter. Nersus did not retreat. He raised his rifle. Through smoke, warp light, and the demon's shifting form, he found the line. The heads turned. The moment came. Nersus fired. The shot struck true. Both heads snapped beneath the impact. The greater demon fell. Its body collapsed into ruin, unraveling into light, ash, and the stench of a lie exposed too late. Silence returned to the chamber. Not peace. Never peace. Only the aftermath of survival. Castor still breathed. Icarus still stood. Lucas withdrew bloodied instruments from sealed wounds. Sarpenthus lowered his hammer. Nersus watched the place where the demon had fallen, his servo skull hovering beside him in mute witness. Daedalon's labyrinth had kept what it was owed.